Learn to deadlift. The bar should be loaded to a light weight relative to your capacity. A light weight for a novice 55-year-old woman will be different from that of an 18-year-old 205-pound athlete. Your gym should be equipped to load weights as light as 55 pounds or possibly even lighter to accommodate people of all levels of ability. This makes it necessary to obtain 5 to 10 pounds plastic training plates that space a 45-pound or 20 kilo, 15 kilo, or even a 10 kilo bar off the floor to the same height as a standard plate, 17 and 3/4 inches or 45 centimeters. If you cannot get these light plates, you can place blocks under 10 or 25 pounds iron plates or set the bar at the correct height in the power rack. The small iron plates place the bar closer to the floor than most people's flexibility accommodate in the correct starting position. Judgment must be exercised here. The starting weight must be light enough so that if your form is bad, you cannot hurt yourself, just in case these instructions are not followed closely enough. So 55 pounds or lighter will be the starting weight for some people. 40 kilos, 88 pounds will work for most women and lighter body weight novices. And 135 pounds will work for athletes and more experienced trainees. There is never a reason for anyone other than a competitive lifter to start heavier than 135 pounds. Figure 4-8. The standard plate diameter provides a standard height for the bar above the floor. Different weights in this standard diameter allow people of different strength levels to pull from the standard height, 8 inches or 20.5 centimeters between the bottom of the bar and the floor. The method of learning the deadlift proceeds in 5 steps. Pay careful attention to each step as you are learning. As the steps become more practiced and familiar, they will merge into a continuous pattern of movements. Step 1. Stance. The stance for the deadlift is about the same as the stance for a flat-footed vertical jump, about 8 to 12 inches between the heels, depending on anthropometry. With the toes pointed out. Bigger, taller people with wider hips will use a proportionally wider stance. This stance is much narrower than the squat stance because of the difference between the two movements. The squat is done from the top down with the hips lowered and driven up. The deadlift starts at the bottom with the feet pushing the floor, the back locked in place, and the legs driving the floor away from the bar. The difference in stance is due to the difference in hip and knee mechanics and the need to accommodate a narrow grip for pulling efficiency. Figure 4-9. The stance for the deadlift places the heels approximately 8 to 12 inches apart with the toes pointed out slightly. The bar should be 1 to 1.5 inches from your shins. For almost every human being on the planet, this distance places the bar directly over the middle foot, the position over which the bar stays on its way up to lockout. Most people are reluctant to keep the bar close enough to the legs during the pull as well as when setting it down, and for the matter before the bar leaves the ground. This reluctance is often due to the fear of marring the beauty of the shins and thighs and a lack of appreciation of significance of the balance in the pull. Efficient bar paths are vertical straight lines, and if the bar starts from a position directly over the midfoot and travels vertically to lock out directly over the midfoot, the most efficient pull will have occurred. It is common to mistake the middle of the forefoot between the tibia and the end of the toes for the middle of the whole foot. The place the bar should actually be. The bar should be positioned with half the foot forward of the bar and half the foot behind it, so that the bar is directly over the middle of the arch of the foot, the point directly under which the weight of the lifter barbell system is centered across the sole of the foot against the ground. Figure 4-10. The difference between the middle of the whole foot seen from the side, A, and from the coach's perspective, B, and the middle of the forefoot, C, seen from the lifter's perspective above, the most common mistake in stance placement. When you have the bar in this position, point your toes out. The angle will be at least 10 degrees and maybe as much as 30 degrees. See the picture of George Hechter in figure 4-39. Your toes might be more pointed out than you want them to be. This stance places the hips in external rotation just as it did for the squat, providing the same benefits: more adductor and external rotation involvement in the movement, as well as clearance between the femurs for the torso so that a good start position can be obtained. Step 2. Grip. After you have assumed the correct stance, grip the bar double overhand and thumb around at the width that places your hands in a position in which your hands are close to your legs without being so close that you rub your thumbs against them as you pull. This grip results in the shortest distance to lock at for the barbell, as should be obvious from our discussion of the snatch grip earlier. Bar markings are the knurling on a standard Olympic bar, which will always have a smooth space in the middle, and which may have a 6-inch center knurl in the middle of this space. Standard bar markings are at about 16.5 inches for the middle space, so the grip can be set according to this dimension. Most people's hands will be about an inch into the knurling, or about 18.5 inches between the hands. Bigger people will need to use proportionally wider grip to match the stance, while most women will need to put their hands closer together. From this, with their index finger on the edge of the knurl. Be aware that most people tend to take too wide of a grip. If your grip is 3 inches into the knurl and your hands touch your legs, your stance is too wide unless you have very broad shoulders, unless you are very broad through your hips. Take your grip onto the bar by bending over at the waist, stiff-legged, without lowering your hips. Most important at this point, and for the following step, is that you do not move the bar. You have gone to considerable trouble to place the bar directly above your midfoot for pulling efficiency, and if you move it during this or any subsequent steps, you will have undone step 1. Step 3. Knees forward. With your grip secure, bend your knees and drop forward just to the point where your shins touch the bar. Again, do not move the bar, since it is already where you want it over the foot. Hips do not drop down during this movement. Only knees and shins move. Once the shins are touching the bar, the hips freeze in position. They do not drop any farther. Now shove your knees out just a little to establish a slight angle of the thighs and knees and keep them parallel. To keep your feet. Knees will be in contact with your elbows after this happens, and that is fine. The correct grip width will have the clearance very close during the pull, and if the grip is correct, the thighs are externally rotated a little. The knees will touch the elbows, and most people will try to lower their hips during this step. If you do this, you will push your knees forward, thus pushing the bar forward. Just touch the bar with your shins and shove your knees out a little. Step 4. Chest up. This will be the most difficult step for most people. Squeeze your chest up into the deadlift start position. Lifting the chest is accompanied by using the muscles of the upper back, and this starts a process of spinal extension that finishes at the pelvis. While gripping the bar, being careful not to move it, shove your rib cage up so that your chest rotates up between your arms. Let the contraction continue down your back until your lumbar spine is tightened into a contraction as well. In this way, your back is properly positioned for you to pull without dropping your hips. The back will have positioned itself correctly so you can pull from the top down instead of by lowering the hips, which would shove the bar forward. Do not try to squeeze your shoulder blades together in the back. Scapula adduction will pull you down closer to the bar into the position that you cannot maintain with a heavy weight, because that's not where your shoulder blades actually stay during a pull. When you are in the correct position, stare at a point 12 to 15 feet in front of you on the floor so that your neck can assume its normal anatomical position. You might need to think about keeping your chin down too. This step will be difficult because of the hamstring tension fighting against the proper extension of the lower back. Remember, the back muscles and the hamstrings are in war of control over the pelvic position, and the lower back must win. During this step, most people will try to drop their hips. If you do this, the bar will roll forward of the midfoot. Your hips will probably be higher than you want them, especially if you have been deadlifting using another method. Keep your hips up. Compensate for this by the weird feeling by squeezing the chest up even more. After you do a few deadlifts and your hamstrings get warm, the movement will feel better and more familiar. Step 5. The pull. Take a deep breath and drag the bar up your legs. This means exactly what it says. Drag implies contact, and the bar never leaves contact with your legs on the way up to lockout. This step will be the first time that the bar actually moves at all. And if you do it correctly, the bar path will be a straight vertical line starting at this position directly over the midfoot and ending at the top at the arm's length with your chest up. Knees and hips in extension, spine in a normal anatomical position, and the feet flat on the floor. If at any time during the pull the bar leaves your legs, which often happens as the bar gets above the knees and near the thighs, it will be off balance, forward of your midfoot. If the bar loses contact with your shins as you start to pull, it has traveled forward, leaving the bar out away from your legs, maybe due to the perfectly natural desire not to scrape the shins. But the bar must remain close to the legs to avoid getting it out of balance. Make up your mind that you're going to keep it close and wear sweats or thin shin guards to protect your shins if you have to. If the bar moves forward anyway and you're sure you are squeezing your chest up, chances are that you are not in balance over the midfoot. When you start the pull, this is a common problem encountered with people who are wearing weightlifting shoes with heels that are too tall, or with people who have long legs and a short back. If this happens, you will need to insert another step, step 4.5. Before you start the pull, get your weight back off your toes. Don't exaggerate this by trying to get back on your heels. Just rock back a little and get the weight off of your toes and back onto your midfoot. And then think about pushing the midfoot straight down into the floor. At the top of the pull, just lift your chest. That's all. Don't shrug your shoulders, either up or back, and don't lean back. Just raise the chest. Seen from the side, this position will be anatomically normal with both lordotic and kyphotic curves in the unexaggerated positions, your eyes looking straight down, and your hips and knees fully extended. Your shoulders back. This is the position your body must assume to safely bear weight in correct back position during the pull. Provides a safe way to transfer the load from the ground to the upright position. Refer to figure 4-12, 5D for this position. Down should be the perfect opposite of up, the only difference being that the bar can go down faster than it went up. It is just as easy to injure your back by setting the bar down incorrectly as it is picking the bar up incorrectly, and it is extremely common to set the bar down wrong with a rounded back and knees forward. If you have pulled it correctly off the floor, a non-vertical bar path makes no more sense on the way down than it does on the way up. So make sure you lower the bar first, unlocking your hips and knees, then shove your hips backward, letting the bar slide down your thighs in a straight vertical line with your lower back locked in extension, in a movement that is the opposite of the upward bar path. As the bar passes your knees, bend them to finish, setting the bar down, never unlocking the back. If your knees go forward before the bar passes them on the way down, the bar will obviously have to go forward to get around them, and this usually means that will have also released your tight back position. Fix your eyes on the floor at a point that is 12 to 15 feet in front of you to put your neck in normal anatomical position and pull a set of 5. Think very hard and pay close attention to your form, concentrating especially on your back position and keeping the bar close to your legs. If you're sure your form is good enough, add weight for a few more sets until it feels like the next increase might be a problem, and that's the first deadlift workout. Figure 4-12. The 5 steps for a perfect deadlift. 1. Take the correct stance. 2. Take your grip on the bar. 3. Drop your shins forward to touch the bar, pushing your knees out slightly and without dropping your hips. 4. Squeeze your chest up with your weight on your midfoot. 5. Drag the bar up the legs.